Have you ever wondered why history's most powerful men seem to possess a magnetic force that transcended the physical? Why great leaders, inventors, and visionaries held an almost supernatural presence, an energy that moved mountains and won hearts? The answer lies in a secret Napoleon Hill uncovered while studying over 500 successful men: the transmutation of sexual energy. But before we continue, allow me to ask a question that might be unsettling. Are you the master of your desires, or are you their slave? This isn't just a philosophical question. It defines the difference between the man who builds empires and the one who lives at the mercy of his baser instincts. We live in an age where pleasure has become a commodity, where desire is sold as a product, and instant gratification is promised with every click. Modern society has conditioned us to believe that sexual energy exists solely to be released, consumed, wasted. We've been taught that repression is dangerous, that denial is neurotic, that abstinence is archaic. But what if I told you that this narrative was constructed to keep us small, weak, and dependent? Napoleon Hill, in his decades of research on success, discovered something the masses aren't prepared to hear. Sexual energy is the most powerful force within a human being, not just for reproduction, not just for pleasure, but as fuel for all great achievements. It's the energy that drives inventors to create, artists to transcend, and leaders to inspire. It's the primal fire that, when tamed, transforms into the sacred flame of genius. Imagine your sexual energy as a powerful river. Society teaches you to build small dams to constantly release water through compulsive masturbation, casual sex, pornography, the relentless pursuit of stimulation. But Hill discovered that exceptional men do something different. They redirect the entire river to power the turbines of their dreams. This isn't a philosophy of repression, it's a philosophy of alchemy. The difference between repression and transmutation is the same as that between burying fire and transforming it into electricity. The man who represses is at war with himself. The man who transmutes is in command of himself. Think of Tesla, who remained celibate during his most productive years. Think of Leonardo da Vinci, who channeled his vital energy to create works that transcended centuries. Think of all the great masters of humanity who understood that sexual energy isn't an impulse to be satisfied, but a force to be directed. When you allow your sexual energy to be constantly dispersed, you are literally draining your life force. Every orgasm is a mini-death, every ejaculation a loss of creative potential. I'm not talking about religious morality or antiquated Puritanism. I'm talking about energetic physics, internal alchemy, personal power. The modern man lives in a state of perpetual sexual confusion, bombarded by stimuli, addicted to dopamine, enslaved by compulsive patterns that keep him weak and scattered. He believes he's being free, but he's actually being controlled. He thinks he's satisfying himself, but he's actually emptying himself. True freedom isn't in giving in to impulses, but in mastering them. True satisfaction isn't in momentary pleasure, but in lasting achievement. The man who learns to transmute his sexual energy isn't denying his nature, he's elevating it. But how does this work in practice? How does this energy transform into power, charisma, success? The answer lies in understanding that sexual energy is, fundamentally, creative energy. It's the force that generates life, that creates from nothing, that transforms potential into reality. When you interrupt the cycle of dissipating this energy, it doesn't disappear. It accumulates, intensifies, transforms. Imagine a man who, for 30 days, decides not to waste his sexual energy. In the first few days, he feels agitation, restlessness, a growing internal pressure. But if he persists, if he learns to redirect this energy towards his projects, his dreams, his ambitions, something extraordinary happens. His mind becomes clearer, more focused, more penetrating. His presence becomes more magnetic, more intense, more charismatic. His will becomes stronger, more determined, more irresistible. This is the secret that great men discovered. Transmuted sexual energy becomes spiritual energy. The fire that burns in the sacral chakra, when not dissipated, ascends the spine, activating higher centers of consciousness. The average man uses this energy for a few minutes of pleasure. The exceptional man uses this energy to create a whole lifetime of purpose. You might be wondering, but isn't the man who masters his sexual energy isn't cold, repressed, or neurotic. On the contrary, he's warmer, more passionate, more alive than ever. But his passion isn't scattered, it's focused. His energy isn't wasted, it's directed. His strength isn't dissipated, it's accumulated. When you stop draining your vital energy through compulsive masturbation, when you stop anesthetizing your soul with empty orgasms, when you stop using sex as an escape from life's challenges, something extraordinary happens. You're forced to confront reality, to face your fears, to face your deferred dreams. Untransmuted sexual energy doesn't allow you to hide. It demands expression, and if you don't express it through sex, it will find other channels: creativity, leadership, entrepreneurship, art, science, philosophy. It will force you to become the highest version of yourself. Think of sexual energy as rocket fuel. You can burn it slowly, always staying at the same level, or you can accumulate it and use it to blast off to higher orbits of existence. The choice is yours, but the consequences are dramatic. The man who chooses sexual transmutation embarks on a journey that is simultaneously the most difficult and the most rewarding of his life. Difficult because it requires him to confront all his vices, all his weaknesses, all his escape mechanisms. Rewarding because it liberates him from chains he didn't even know existed. In the first few months of practice, you may feel like you're walking through an emotional desert. Without the constant small satisfactions of masturbation, without the temporary reliefs of orgasm, you may feel dry, restless, dissatisfied. But this is part of the process. You're detoxifying from an addiction you didn't even know you had. Modern society has framed masturbation as a right, a need, even a healthy practice. But Napoleon Hill saw beyond this narrative. He understood that masturbation is, fundamentally, a waste of vital energy. It's not a moral sin, it's energetic inefficiency. Every time you masturbate, you're literally draining your life force. You're taking energy that could be used to build empires and squandering it on a few seconds of pleasure. You're choosing momentary gratification over lasting achievement. But when you stop masturbating, when you stop compulsive ejaculation, when you stop using sex as a drug, something miraculous happens. You rediscover your inner strength. You rediscover your capacity for focus. You rediscover your thirst for conquest. Preserved sexual energy transforms into mental energy. The man who practices sexual transmutation develops a capacity for concentration that's almost supernatural. He can focus on projects for hours without tiring, can solve complex problems with crystal clarity, can make difficult decisions with courage and determination. This happens because sexual energy is, fundamentally, creative energy. It's the force that creates life, that generates novelty, that transforms potential into reality. When you don't waste it on empty orgasms, it accumulates and transforms into pure creative power. Great artists knew this. Michelangelo, who created some of humanity's most sublime works, rarely engaged sexually. Beethoven, who composed symphonies that still touch the human soul, channeled his sexual energy into his music. Einstein, who revolutionized our understanding of the universe, used his vital energy for profound scientific contemplation. They weren't abnormal, they were superior. They understood that sexual energy can be used to create beauty, to discover truths, to inspire generations. They chose immortality through art and science over momentary satisfaction through sex. You can make the same choice. You can decide that your sexual energy is too valuable to be wasted on fleeting pleasures. You can decide that your life force deserves to be directed toward higher purposes. You can decide that your masculinity will be expressed through self-mastery, not through submission to instincts. But this decision cannot be taken lightly. Sexual transmutation is a spiritual discipline, not a self-help technique. It requires dedication, persistence, courage. It requires you to become the warrior of your own soul, to fight against the inner demons that prefer mediocrity to the extraordinary. The path isn't easy. There will be days when you feel you can't continue, that the internal pressure is unbearable, that it would be easier to simply masturbate and release the tension. But it's precisely in these moments that you'll discover what you're truly made of. It's precisely in these moments that you'll have the opportunity to transcend your previous limits. Untransmuted sexual energy is like a river running to the sea, powerful but without specific direction. Transmuted sexual energy is like a dammed river that moves turbines, concentrated, directed, productive. The difference isn't in the amount of water, but in what you do with it. When you master your sexual energy, you're not just changing your habits, you're altering your essence. You're transforming from an ordinary man, ruled by impulses, into a superior man, ruled by purpose. You're evolving from a reactive being to a creative being. This transformation is visible. People around you will start to notice something different about you. Your voice will have more authority. Your eyes will have more intensity. Your presence will have more magnetism. You won't need to talk about your practice. It will speak for itself. But beware of pride. The man who masters his sexual energy can become arrogant, can feel superior to others. This is a trap. True sexual transmutation generates humility, not arrogance. It generates compassion, not superiority. It generates service, not selfishness. Remember, you're developing this strength not to feel better than others, but to better serve the world. You're accumulating this energy not to feed your ego, but to fulfill your mission. You're practicing this discipline not to impress, but to inspire. The desexualized mind is a liberated mind, liberated from the compulsions that keep most men trapped, liberated from the needs that make ordinary men predictable and manipulable, liberated from the vices that drain energy and dissipate focus. When you develop a desexualized mind, you become a dangerous man, not dangerous to others, but dangerous to the status quo. You become someone who cannot be controlled through their most basic instincts. You become someone who possesses an inner strength that most people don't even know exists. This is the ultimate weapon of the modern man, not a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of construction. A weapon that builds empires, that builds legacies, that builds a life of meaning and purpose. Imagine what your life would be like if you weren't a slave to your sexual impulses.